Hello everyone, it's Professor Muldrow once again. In this video, I'm going to show you three different structures that Python uses. Those structures are lists, tuples, and dictionaries. Let's start with a list. As you can see here, a list in Python is what C++ and Java would call an array. Here's an example of a list right here. It has 5 elements. And if you define a list in this way in Python, you must put the elements in square brackets separated by commas. Now, unlike other languages, Python does not require all elements of a list to be of the same type. As you can see in this particular list, I have text strings, I have a floating point value, and I have an integer value, all contained within the same list. You're allowed to do that. In Python, lists are what we consider mutable. That means once you define them, you're allowed to change them within the program. You can change the values of elements of that list. A list is also ordered. That means the elements are restricted to a certain order, given by the indexes, of course. Now, you can use indexes to access elements of a list. As you can see, I've set up a for loop right here to print out the elements of that first list called myList. Notice in the range function, indexes still begin with a 0, just like they do in other languages. And Python has a built-in function called len, L-E-N. The len function returns the length or number of elements in the list. However, Python also gives you the ability to not have to use indexes to display elements of a list. Look at this second for loop. For data in my other list. So just by using this in statement with the name of a list, with a variable, that will display all the elements of a list without using an index value. I'm going to run this program and show you what I mean. So right here in my output, here's my first loop, which printed out the values of my list, and here is its output. Then, this for loop did not use indexes to print my other list. Here is its output. Python can be very flexible when it comes to lists. Another structure that is used in Python is called a tuple. A tuple is defined in this way. Instead of using square brackets like for a list, you use parentheses for the elements of a tuple. Like a list, a tuple does not require that all its elements be of the same type. But unlike a list, a tuple is immutable. That means once you define a tuple, you are not allowed to change the values of its elements. But like a list, a tuple is also ordered in that elements are restricted to a certain order. Also, like a list, you can use indexes to display elements of a tuple. Also have the ability to not use indexes to display values of a tuple. As you can see right there. Blue circle is a loop using index values to display the values of tuple 1, the values of the elements of tuple 1. And in the red box, you have a for loop that does not use indexes to display all the elements of tuple 2. And they both work. Now, I will tell you that as far as lists are concerned, there are many built-in functions that you can use. I would highly recommend looking at the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 7 in the Gaddis folder. in the PowerPoints folder in the Files area to go over all of those functions. Highly recommend that. The last type of structure we'll talk about in this video is called a dictionary. A dictionary, unlike a tuple and a list, does not use indexes. It uses what we call key value pairs. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Here I have a dictionary that I call zips. And here is one element of that dictionary. The first thing listed is the key. This 5-digit string, it's actually a zip code. So the zip code is the key. Now, in Python, a key must be an immutable object, like a string. And then you put a colon after the key, and then after the key comes the value associated with that key. In Python, the key value can be mutable or immutable, doesn't matter. The value that goes with the key is mutable or immutable. In this case, I happen to make the value a list. The list contains the population of a certain metro area and the large city associated with that metro area. So the zip code 77449 is associated with Houston, Texas, and has this population. You can change elements of a dictionary once you define it. So the dictionary overall is mutable, but a dictionary doesn't really have order like a tuple or a list do. Those keys can be put in any order and it doesn't really matter. It'll still work. The way you would access each element is you use the key. So here in this for loop, I'm set up a variable named key, and I say in zips, the name of the dictionary. So what this for loop will do is it'll access each individual key. And then we're going to use that key to get to each element. Of the dictionary. That one. There's this one. So right here, you see the zip code key. We display the actual key. Now here, we're going to display the name of the metro area that goes with that key value. Here's the key value. And then we have index 1, because as you can see in the value for each key, the list, the population is the first element of the list. That's index 0. The city is index 1. So we use the key to get to the element. The value that goes with the key. And then we're going to use this bracket 1 to access the right element of the list to display the right thing. Furthermore, we say it has a population of, we say zips key 0. So there is the value of the key to get to the right value in the dictionary. And then we'll say bracket 0, meaning get us the element 0 of the list. And when you do that, you get this output here. Here's the first one for Houston, Texas. Here's the second one for New York. Here's the third one for Chicago. Now, the value that goes with a key doesn't have to be a list. It can be one single number or one single string. It doesn't have to be a list, but it can be a list. It can also be a tuple, the value that goes with the key. But this is a very common thing in Python to use dictionaries. It's very similar to a database. Not exactly the same, but similar to that. There you have a list, a tuple, and a dictionary in Python. If you have any questions, please send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu.